Hello and welcome to New Meta episode 59. I'm your host Stan, aka the Magic T. Marco and Adam join me as always. Marco, welcome to the pod. We're talking about the map today. How do you feel? You feeling good?
Feeling good, yeah. I think it's a very interesting topic. Very important, very important.
You've been looking forward to this one, have you?
Yeah, it's just like on flame you. I mean,
well, I can already see some
shade.
I can already see some division points because you call the jungle the woods. I don't know what this is derived from, but
it's because they're the woods. They're trees. Like, if you define woods, right? That's a collection of an area of land smaller than a forest that is covered with growing trees. That's exactly where the neutral camps lie, isn't it? Wow.
It is funny in games sometimes when you comms to people in all chat and you're like, get out of the woods, or like, we don't need a woods legion commander in this game, and like no one's sure like quite what you're talking about, because everyone's like, you mean we don't need a jungle legion or something, or what?
Yeah, jungle sounds too tropical. Yeah.
I just call it the Rainforest. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, Adam's got it. Rainforest.
Yeah, with the Wildkins. That seems like a rainforest. Bit of flora and fauna.
The garden. I'm going to stop calling it the garden. Get out of the garden. Stop farming garden creeps. Get to the lanes. Before we get to the topic though, games. Adam, I'll start with you. How have your games been in the last week? Have they been good? How's DotA treating you?
Still grinding that unranked. I got enough shards to buy the 75k Crystal Maiden set. So pretty excited about that.
That is nice, yeah.
Yeah, I got to play dress up. I was basically just looking at every hero that was almost about to level up, and I'd play a game with him and try and just grind shards.
Yeah.
But I'm like a 0-4 streak. Last night I played an hour and 5-minute game, took a break, and then like at 11, I was like, I'll just play one more. Then had an hour and 8-minute game.
Oh.
Lost both of them. I was like, damn, I shouldn't have played. This is like so late now. It might have been started at midnight. I can't remember. I went to bed late.
Life of a gamer.
I had an hour and 8-minute Drow Ranger game against a rank 100 Quap on the other team.
Ooh,
it was a crazy,
hit
crazy
game.
game.
Win the game.
What was that?
Hit August and win the game.
What are you talking about? He's got BKB.
Yules.
He's got Refresher, Octarine, Hex.
Did he play his rank then? Did he play what?
Oh yeah, he played his rank. It was pretty crazy. He just like blink in, scream, so fear, then hex you out of the fear, then fear you again, and then the rest of the team had 3 hexes. So it was a fun one.
That scream of fear, the scream of pain, fear talent at 25 is redonk. It's one of the best in the game.
One.
Yeah, with the 12% cooldown reduction, talent plus the Octarine core is just like so dumb.
I will say, speaking of playing their rank, I think the biggest compliment Marco's ever got is when he was playing a Nyx assassin in a Heimermar game and Cinderin said he was playing his rank. Marco's never been so happy on his position 4 Nyx.
He was playing his rank or not playing his rank?
He was playing his rank.
I was playing so bad. It's the first Nyx I've played in like a year. I was so bad. He was bad as well, but it was one of those questionable moments, like Double Down against Gunnar Morflin, where you're just like, of all the heroes I could have picked, why do I pick a Nyx?
Yeah,
that's so. I mean, I respect your courage, the double down against Gunnar's Morph, but I mean, it's not what I would have chosen.
And then you go with the Nyx. It's like a double oof.
I mean, still got those fun memories in. That's the Heimermar world that us mortals can only aspire to.
I love that the rank 2.5k calling you's playing your rank, that's like the flame, the super flame. Whereas to anybody below that, it's like, yay, I'm playing above my rank. You, it's like, I'm trash.
Yeah. Me and Adam we'd been winning duo queues for fun and like crushing the game. Then we played 3. We had one that was really good. One where Adam played an offlane position 3 Venge, and now I'm a big fan because he gave me Solar Crest and I was playing Monkey King and he was like highest net worth doing bits. That was quite a fun game. And then we played the 2 games that weren't as fun.
That Lich game.
Yeah. My laning partner, I played a Slave Lane Slark and my laning Silencer griefed the game, and then I played an OD mid and I griefed the game on OD, so that was pretty much how it went. Adam tried to gank mid and he used Q, he used it whatever the... Oh, sorry.
Mage,
yeah, sorry, I should have said Skyref Mage. He uses the whatever the Q's called. I actually can't remember what it's called. Not the bolt.
I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Arcane Bolt?
Yeah, I think so. Arcane Bolt or something. And while it's in midair, about to hit the enemy Lina. Yeah, the enemy Lina. I throw out an Astral, so already a misplay. And then I get the other side of Lina so that she can't, I'm in a position to right-click her as she retreats back to her tower. What I don't realise is my non-flying courier is delivering me a salve. So Lina pops out of the Astral as a courier is waddling past her. 2 right clicks for the easy courier kill before it's delivered anything to anyone in the game, and then just gets safely back into her tower because we haven't got enough damage. Partly because I've astraled her while the arcane bolt's in midair. So that basically was a bit of an oops moment to set up an oops game.
No response from Marco on that one, huh?
I mean,
you've seen enough of my OD.
That's just business as usual, right? It's a normal day in the office. Like,
that's mid. That's Stan's role.
Dota,
that's what he's supposed to do.
I'll have you know that I played a 22-1 OD today. So there you go. Marco, you've been super busy. I know. Have you played many games? I know we played 1 or 2.
A few days ago, we played some ranks that kept going wrong. I'm on a 4-loss streak. That's a bit sad.
Yeah, it is a bit of a sad, to be fair. Yeah, me, you, and Nick Day, legend of the pod, lost streak. Pretty sad. Although someone did get a rampage on Shadow Fiend in one of our games, so that was pretty wild.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
The 11-minute Shadow Fiend rampage into Deso, into useless 20-minute loss. Yeah, it's literally. I played Shadow Fiend basically, Adam, and I don't know if you've played with my SF, but basically I'm literally Miracle for 11 minutes, and then I just lose the ability to press my mouse and keyboard.
You die one time, and then that's it.
Well, yeah, just anything. I can't buy an item properly. I can't hit a hero properly. I can't do anything, and I'm completely useless.
I'm a fan of Deso SF with the talent to push towers. Presence works on buildings.
This wasn't the game for it.
Yeah, it wasn't the game for it, this one, but you can imagine Marco's disappointment when his mid Shadow Fiend gets a rampage at 12 minutes and is sitting on 4k gold or something. Asks the team, shall I get Greaves?
Oh, yeah.
To which Marco says yes, and then Marco clicks on me and I've got Deso.
Oh my god.
Deso to farm the Greaves, obviously.
Obviously, yeah, that's the big brain play. But yeah, that was a bit of a rough one. My Shadow Fiend's really, really bad.
Whatever. Your item decision losses.
Yeah, it was a game-losing item.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice first 10 minutes when you got that rampage.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, SF's one of those heroes where you can just steal 5 kills in a row with a raise. So, I mean, he's a pretty good hero for getting early kills. That much we already know. And then for mine, I'll just say nothing much to report. I am 50% to Divine 1, though. That's a pog.
Oh, very nice.
So maybe by next episode, the pod's reputation will be saved with me returning to Divine. That's pretty much it, I suppose.
You're going to play 3 more TA games?
Maybe. I did get a TA... Well, basically, I was getting a bit of casual flame on the Discord for my sub 50% TA win rate, despite the fact that I played over 100 games on TA. So I did have to swiftly silence the haters with a TA win. So once I got that one checked off, I can go back to not touching the hero because I'm trying to actually climb and not have fun. Back to the Viper. But yeah, and that's about all. I don't think there's much else to touch on. Just more of the same in the Dota world. Just waiting for this patch. Who knows when it's going to come? But it feels like it should be coming real soon. Just in time to destroy this episode on using the map, right? When everything gets changed in the patch.
Yeah, we're really good about the timing of these topics.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the podcast, or maybe I've interpreted the topic wrong, but I actually see this episode as how to use the minimap.
What do you mean, how to use the minimap?
So to me, I play, I don't know, I swear it's 60% of my time is looking at the minimap.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a segue into just the whole using the map conversation, but I've thought the game, I mean, I guess the points might overlap, but yeah, I think the minimap is what's super important.
Yeah, the minimap's a smaller version of the map.
Okay, yeah, so we can talk about the minimap, right?
Yeah. All right. Thanks for that point.
As opposed to like strategic points on the actual map and talking about that, I had in mind, let's just grind the minimap. Yeah, maybe these can be two separate points and we'll get into them.
When I think of using the minimap, I think of awareness of where heroes are on the map based on information you can glean from watching the minimap.
Yeah.
But where to, like, macro reasons why you'd want to play, say, in the enemy jungle, for example, when you're ahead, or later in the game, why it's better to be spending as much time as possible on the other side of the map. That's not necessarily, I wouldn't say that's how to use the minimap.
It's not. That's a point I hadn't thought about.
Right. Okay. Well, I vaguely split this episode up into 3 points. I don't know how many of them we'll get through. Sort of in classic new meta style, we'll basically just go through our notes in order, and anything that we don't get to, we'll touch on next episode, perhaps. But the first points to discuss is more just where to play on the map and why at different times during the game, different situations. It's almost got to a point now in Dota, I think, where a lot of people think, we need to be making sure we're pushing our creeps into the enemy side of the jungle, and we really should be like playing on their side of the map. But I think for a lot of players, it's kind of empty, myself included, because you can never get, I'm not saying understand the map perfectly, certainly not, but they're sort of empty points or they're half understood points. So it's good to discuss, like, why is it that the safe lane becomes a dead lane? Why would I want to control the enemy triangle versus the enemy jungle, like these things? Anyway, that's the first little point. Second bit being high ground, not high ground of the base, but just high ground on the map. I don't know how long we'll spend on that, because I don't know how much there is to talk about there, but it's worth remembering the importance of just the high ground where the shrines are and the triangles and all that. They're important areas to cover, and you can do a lot with them. And then finally Roche, and the importance of the Roche area. So starting with just general play on the map.
Well, this is tough, right? Because it's like position based, right? Hero and position based.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, we're not going to be saying like, you want to be playing around the enemy shrine, but if you see a hero like enter from, it's not like game specific, it's just more macro. But it's still difficult to talk about, no doubt about that.
I think positional is still macro level. It doesn't have to be like, if you're Wraith King, blah blah at this point in the game. But
I think you can definitely make statements and comments like, you as a team want to be moving around this area of the map, or playing around, say, the enemy's tier 2 on the bottom, or something. You can make these macro statements, and then the second step to that would be, okay, looking within your team, who is going to be doing what role to achieve this macro objective. And so to me, an example of that is like, do you let your Crystal Maiden waddle top to push out the creep wave, or do you let your Tinker with Boots of Travel rearm go top and push out the creep wave? That's your then like secondary decision making. But I think you can make these high level macro shouts just non-position specific.
There's no obvious place to start, but one place we could start is this idea of the dead lane that people talk about, and basically how the safe lane becomes the hardest lane to farm in. The most dangerous area of the map becomes your safe lane after a certain point into the game. Obviously, sometimes it's different, but I'd say, honestly, 9 times out of 10. And why this is, because I think it's criminal how often carries in lower MMRs will just farm the safe lane for 15 minutes and die 3 times between, say, 8 and 15, because they don't understand that the safe lane becomes extremely dangerous. Marco, you're a safe lane player. Well, I suppose you're an everything player, so I don't want to offend you, but as a largely safe lane player, how do you think about the safe lane as that develops into the game, and what kind of things make you potentially want to, move around and etc.?
Yeah, so with the safe lane, I think I've mentioned it before with our carry episodes, but I think a large part of playing a 1 well is putting yourself in the enemy's shoes and understanding what the enemy wants to do and reacting accordingly. So I don't know if this is strictly correct or if this is conventional wisdom or not, but I imagine that the safe lane becomes the dead lane, because if you think about what the enemy wants to do, or even what your own team wants to do, going to get the enemy's safe tower, tier 1, is the easiest tier 1 you can get, without a doubt. The mid, you can get attacks from multiple sides. The off-lane tower, it's closer to the off-lane tier 2. You can also get attacked from multiple sides. Talking about the tier 1. The enemy safe lane tier 1 is the easiest tower you can secure as a team. So then if you're the position 1, you should have expectation that there's going to be these rotations to take the easy tower that the enemy can take. So get the hell out and don't try and stay there when there are these TPs bottom by the enemy's cores grouping up to take you tier 1. Get the fuck out, go to the off lane. And that's why you so often in pro games just see mirrored plays by both teams, where both teams take each other's safe lane tier 1 at the same time, because they understand that it's a tower too hard to fight and defend for. So our best response is to just go get theirs when they get ours. And that's why the carry will go get the last hit and then farm the woods that he's around in that area. It's such a common play to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And the key important thing, like you say, is recognizing as the position 1 player, recognize that it is the easiest place to gank, the easiest tower to take. Also,
another point I'd make, and this is probably applicable to a lot of the game, but saying this very classic situation where the enemy turns up with 3-4 heroes knocking at your safe lane tier 1, that's an obvious sign GTFO, it's dangerous, go farm elsewhere. But then that information of them all knocking on your tower, do you as the carry either A, go farm your woods or triangle, or B, go shove out creep waves as far as you can and then go back to the woods? Obviously B. So if you're seeing 4 enemy heroes slaying a tower, that is your rite and passage to get shoved in creep wave as much as you can, because they're going to give more golden XP than the Beasley neutrals would. And a good carry player is one that's going to push that limit as much as they can without getting caught out.
Adam, do you have any thoughts on sort of the dead lane dynamic, safe lane becoming hard, and why those safe lane tier 1s are sort of target number 1 for attacking teams?
I do agree that they're the easiest towers to siege. They generally go down at 10 to 12 minutes. Earlier if it's a bad lane, earlier if it's like you got creep cutting shenanigans. But if you think about the way the trees are set up for the enemy, or for the safe lane towers, the tier 1s, there's really nowhere that's that good to like TP in to protect them. It's like this big swath of trees that like really limits your surrounding. Kind of like how Marco said, like the offlane towers you can TP in and you have more room to work with. It seems like with the safe lane that you're just TPing and you really have no where to counter initiate unless they dive like really hard. But once that tower falls, it kind of opens up your entire jungle just to get smoked on. And like ward it up, and it's really hard to deward or keep it entirely clean because there's so much area in the jungle that can be warded. So I do agree that either you TP out or you kind of feel the pressure coming, so then you take the jungle camps as you work your way towards mid or to the off lane. Eventually, I mean, it's kind of where the laning stage breaks down is where this tower push happens anyways. So hopefully your mid or your off laner has some levels or something to do. Or maybe you just put a park of support there. I mean, there's certain heroes that can like shove out the wave, right? Kind of delay it without putting themselves at too much of a risk. Yeah, because it feels like the longer you delay that tower falling, the better, I guess, the more efficient farming or the more safe farming is open to your team.
What I think is really frustrating is when the enemy has 1 or 2 heroes getting that safe lane tower, I really find that frustrating because that if there's only one or two heroes, that's very easy to defend, and if there's only one or two, they're actually quite vulnerable to like a wraparound gank, say. If the enemy comes with like 3-4 heroes, then unless you've got some beastly team fight, that's your signal to go get farm elsewhere on the map, go get a trade elsewhere on the map. But I really hate it when just you let one or two enemy heroes uncontested get a free tower. That should never happen.
Not even like sieging heroes.
Yeah,
just just a support and some other like little dinky thing. They might even not have a siege wave or like a siege cart. They're just pepping it and it just goes down. Because it's like what you said. If you had a concerted, like you say, you bring in 3 people and you repel it, or maybe you get a kill, then you just take their offlane tower off of that. You know what I mean? You just counter the wave push. Put it in the other direction.
I would say as well, additional reasons why this safe lane tower, safe lane tier 1, becomes the most untenable area of the map. It's the most isolated side of the river for your team. It's so far away from the tier 2 in that lane, whereas the offlane tower is extremely close together. The offlane tier 1 is way close to your own base. So, for example, if you choose to defend your safe lane tier 1, you're very isolated. Your heroes, it takes them a long time to get mid, it takes them a long time to get back to base relative to the other side of the map, the triangle side.
And the shrines too.
Yeah, the shrine TP's further away.
Shrine TP's further away. Also, you can enter where the creep equilibrium is in the safe lane. For enemy heroes, they can go through the lane, say TP to their off lane tier 1, walk through the lane to access the equilibrium point and access that sort of, behind the trees, bounty rune area around the safe lane tower without ever having to cross the river. Whereas if you're attacking the off lane tower, you have to either walk straight up to the tower or you've got to cross the river at a different point, which could be warded. Basically, it's a lot harder. So it's a very isolated area of the map, and so naturally teams are going to be more inclined to ditch it because it is difficult to defend it. And to Marco's point, we were saying how it's very frustrating when 2 heroes take this tower. That's another thing to think about is we shouldn't be losing a tower, no matter how isolated it is. We shouldn't be losing a tower to 2 heroes. There must be, if the safe lane duo, your position 1, your position 5, can't hold this tower, whatever, 8 minutes into the game or something to 2 heroes, then your off lane should be the one that's being the proactive and TPing to defend it and just lane swap in that way.
Yeah.
Because you must have a combination of side lane core and side lane support that can hold a tier 1 at least a bit into the game.
The next level play is that the enemy only show 2 heroes hitting that tower and kind of force you to bring a couple in response, and then suddenly 2 more appear who hadn't revealed themselves. That's the next level play that's probably not going to happen in most games.
Well, another next level play is the same thing.
Yeah.
Where, say, the off lane hero or the position 4 hero or both, anticipating a lane swap, TP to the safe lane tier 1. So there's now 4 heroes there. They not only repel the wave, but also get a kill or 2. Then, after that's happened, the safe lane TPs to the off lane tier 1 to farm there. Don't just TP both heroes at the same time to do a complete swap. Use one first, have a numbers advantage, get a kill, then TP the other way.
Yeah,
little things like that can be a nice little play as well.
This stuff, the timing of this is generally when, if it's duo lane, generally when people have ults, level 6 or 7 is when it happens. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
So you can kind of time that with like people hit certain spikes or whatever, 6 or 7.
Another thing as well is just what we were saying about delaying. That's why a lot of support heroes that have D-push or, it's so important to have D-push and wave clear in your lineup. Not necessarily just from one hero, say just from your mid. If you have a hero like Wyvern or Rubik or whatever that can just Fade Bolt and Splinter Blast some waves to keep your tower alive a little bit longer, that creates a lot of space because heroes have to stay for however much longer attacking, trying to finish off the tower, and just delays the enemy team from advancing through and taking map control and applying pressure and stuff. And that's why you'll see a lot of the time a random support hero sitting, D-pushing their own safe lane tier 1, fully aware that they will die at some point, but they know they're going to die, but it doesn't matter because it's worth it for them if they can depush like 2-3 waves with spamming spells. I saw that a lot at TI. Random hero completely isolated while the rest of the team is playing the enemy jungle on their own triangle. There's one hero depushing a wave, usually not a core hero. And that's maybe not something to apply to your pubs, but that's just an observation of how pros are sort of enacting some of the concepts we're talking about.
Yeah, that's an interesting scenario because it's earlier on in the game. It's simpler, but to me, it's a kind of a solved, perfected game scenario, like in a game theory way of, say you've got one support holding that tower, like a Winter Wyvern. The enemy team, if they commit to only 2 heroes to try and kill it, it's hard to make sure that happen. And then with 2 TP rotations, it's very high risk. So the enemy team goes, well, to punish this guy or to kill this guy and get this tower, we need like 3-4 heroes. They commit that. Most often that Winter Wyvern's going to die, but knowing that this heavy commitment's going to come, his team just trade, mirror, and go get their own tower, and then you get this kind of equilibrium where both towers get taken. I mean, the good Winter Wyvern probably TPs out, and then you do just get this equilibrium of both get a tower. And it is just such a common play that happens. It's
like Gosu AI. Gosu AI is going high ground through the enemy off lane before they've even taken... Sorry, through the enemy safe lane before they've even taken an off lane tier 1. That's how much they're prioritizing that side of the map and playing in the enemy jungle and taking the enemy safe lane towers rather than trying to take the enemy off lane towers because they're just that much harder to play in that side of the map.
Yeah, if you think about trying to siege an off-lane tier 2, just because of the shrine, you're so susceptible and can get pincered really easily. It's harder to control the siege, whereas if you're Dire sieging Radiance tier 2, you can just completely wrap your team around the tier 2 tower and there's no way for a response to happen. But if you're sieging the off-lane tier 2, you're on the low ground and you can easily get wrapped yourself. So yeah, it's interesting how the map makes these dynamics happen.
Yeah. Looking forward then, I suppose we arrive into this more general point of playing in the enemy jungle, which is something that you hear all the time. The importance of not just playing on the enemy side of the map, but also playing in the enemy jungle, because you've gone through their safe lane, because that's the easiest tier 1 to take, like we said, and therefore that's sort of the first tower that falls that opens up the map a bit. Throw in a mid tier 1 and you really have unlocked the enemy jungle, and it often becomes the best, arguably the safest place to play as well as the most advantageous. I don't know if we want to just jump into some of the reasons why you'd want to play in the enemy jungle. There are some more obvious than others, like simply the fact that if you're farming, you can simultaneously, deny the enemy hero's farm rather than just AFKing in your own jungle. You can actually be AFKing in the enemy jungle, which stops enemy heroes from farming those creeps. That's just a super easy example, but there's many more. Marco, I don't know if you have anything to say about playing in the enemy jungle or the enemy side of the map, or whichever way you want to take it.
I mean, I feel very strongly about the idea of playing in the enemy jungle, woods, rainforest. And the factor that I find biggest is the fact that when you're farming those woods, not only is it the absolute equivalent gold XP as your own woods, but in the enemy jungle, you're just way better positioned, assuming you've got creep lanes well pushed to find that gank and to find that pick off. If you're position 1, 2, or 3, or 4, if you shove out the creep waves, then B, the enemy's gonna come kill those waves. Like if it's on the side of the map near the tower, say, or like in between the tier 1 and tier 2, an enemy guy is gonna appear to get that gold XP. You can't make a play if you're in your own woods. You've got to be in the enemy woods to be ready to make a play. So if you're in the enemy woods, just go farm a camp player at it. Like the two just sync up so well, and it's all about that. I guess it's a bit about that tempo of tempo. To me, is you're shoving out creep waves and you're moving off the map quickly and not showing information. Tempo being you're like making aggressive movements into the enemy side of the map so that you can get a pick off before reactions can happen. Like one of the most painful pub experiences is you see this kill that should happen. So say this enemy hero reveals themselves, farms this creep wave, and the enemy hero is in a vulnerable position because they're not near a tower and they're on their own, and other enemy heroes revealed elsewhere on the map. Okay, this scenario is that hero's in a vulnerable position, they should die. But then, like, if you're ill positioned and you're way away on your side of the map, say, not over the river, that's a missed kill. You needed to be more preemptively ready to make that kill happen. And a way you can do that is thinking really hard and telling yourself before you go to bed every night, I'll try and farm enemy woods a bit more, and you'll find yourself reaping a lot more success.
Yeah, you can capitalize on situations like you just said, enemies out of position.
And like even things like an enemy support, someone TPs to a shrine, or they walk up a ramp and you just snipe a kill really fast and then get out. Little gains like this can happen, or by invading the enemy woods, you can get more advantageous wards. A lot can be gained from, like you say, playing in the enemy woods. But
randomly find a stack, you can just walk into a stack or something.
Yeah, things like this. And the point you make about denying creep is a good one. Like, you could make the argument that, they're just going to farm your creep, so it's just equal, whatever. But that's not necessarily going to be the case. And if you take enemy neutrals, a lot of the time you will be denying them. They'll come along 30, 40 seconds later and there aren't any neutrals there. Like, it can add up, that denying them farm aspect. But after all this, I do still need to stress that I think this kind of play can only happen when you are pushing your creeps out as fast and aggressively as possible. So I mean, like, it's definitely this kind of movement doesn't work if your creeps are at your towers, chipping your towers down. So you've really got to put shoving creep waves number one, and then number two, think about getting out and off the map and getting out your woods to make something happen on the enemy side of the map.
Yeah, one reason, like we said, if this scenario where, we're taking their jungle creeps, but they might be taking ours, well, that's one reason why the creeps come first, the lane creeps. Because you push the lane creeps, if it's on their side of the map, then it's not really tenable for them to be farming your jungle, because they need to be de-pushing their waves.
Yeah.
And if they're de-pushing their waves when, say, their position one's farming your creeps, well, then whoever's come to de-push your waves is isolated, and it's just, the opportunities just arise naturally just from being ready to pounce by being on their side of the map and having your creeps there. It's another thing, just a general point. It's good to know, roughly have an idea of where creeps are going to be in the lane at certain times, because obviously creeps spawn on the minute and at 30 seconds. The creeps in the mid lane, they're going to roughly be in between the tier 1 and tier 2 in that gap, around 10 seconds after the creep spawn. So at 10 seconds after the minute and 40 seconds after the minute. They're going to meet at the river 20 seconds after they spawn, so 20 seconds after the minute and 50 seconds. For the side lanes, they're in that gap between the tier 1 and tier 2, around 14 seconds for the off lane and a bit later for the safe lane, 15, 16 seconds, that kind of time. And they turn the corner at the edge of the map 30 seconds after they spawn. So that will be 30 seconds after the minute and on the minute. With that information, if you wanted to memorize something like that, that's going to pretty much tell you where the creep lane is at all times. Even when the creeps are pushed right up your own tier 3 towers, you're going to know that, say, 45 seconds after the minute, there's going to be a creep wave between where my off lane tier 1 and 2 was. I can cut that creep wave if I'm out on the map. And likewise in the other side lane or in the mid lane, that 30 seconds after the minute or on the minute, there's going to be a creep wave, an enemy creep wave, in between my mid tier 1 and mid tier 2. I can cut that creep wave sneakily without wasting any seconds waiting for the wave, or poking my head out in a dangerous position to see if the creeps are there. I'm going to know that they're there because I know my creep timings roughly. Those things can be really helpful. Not to mention the fact that you can sneak across lanes without enemy creeps seeing you, because you know where they are, so you can time it right. You can dodge the wave. There's nothing worse than sort of making a naked dash for it on a hero, hoping to get across a lane to safety or get across a lane to anywhere, and there happens to be an enemy creep wave walking through. That's an awful feeling, and then you're right sitting duck in vision. So know your creep timings, and stuff like that doesn't happen, and it's just a nice little thing to memorize if you can.
Shoving waves. Waves are like wards. So
the vision aspect, that's important.
Yeah, just like deeper vision, just from the creep wave itself. If you shove it into a tier 2 or something, you necessitate a response, and that's where you set up on getting kills, or if you force rotations to one side of the map, then you can play the other side of the map, and you can hide in the trees and then push out the wave again, and then like just have a whole cat and mouse thing. Yeah, I think.
Sorry.
Or sorry, go ahead. You go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, I think that was pretty much my point. I feel like I really like pushing the tier 2 in the safe lane. I really like playing the opposite side of the map. Whether you're a 4, like if you're a Crystal Maiden or a Lena just shoving out waves, and then, or if you're like a Jug or something, it just feels really good to be in the other side of the map. And then if you have something like spin TP, like you're not even like in danger or anything like that. It's just like you can be really greedy, and it feels really good just looking on the minimap when you have a wave that deep too. Just feel like you can just see so much more.
Another example that I think is a classic example relating to shoving creep waves predominantly, but say you shove creep waves, like you kill a wave, but then you run ahead and nuke the next wave. If you did that, that would mean your creeps are going to meet the next enemy creeps somewhere close to the enemy tower. A classic example is you force that to happen, and then the enemy likely core, like a 1, 2, or 3, will see all this creep near their tower and likely want to TP and farm it. I think that's a false, often a poor play, but often that will happen. And when you see that TP of a core to the other side of the map, say that off lane or safe lane where the creeps are meeting, you then as a team, all your TPs are up, you are off the map because you've killed the creep waves. You can be moving or positioning elsewhere on the map aggressively across the river, in the woods, wherever, to make a fight, a skirmish 3v3, 3v5 happen or whatever, because you've dragged someone away because of that creep push, and because also at the same time you've got like aggressive hero positioning. Because the player just said you need both the creep pushing, but then both your team like aggressively mindedly on the enemy side of the map. Like you can't push the creep wave, someone TPs to farm it, but then all your team's dilly-daddling around your shrine, like, what shall we do? When that guy's TP happens, you all need to be like crossing the river kind of thing, or already in the enemy woods waiting to make a big fight happen where they've got a core that can't be there.
What if I like to dilly-dally?
Well, then you like to stagnate your MMR.
Another reason why the pushing creeps comes first and then playing on the enemy side of the map comes second is because having creeps pushed, having creeps meeting and fighting and generally being across the river on the enemy side of the map, that allows so many more movement opportunities for your team. Imagine you're Radiant and you're sort of roughly playing on the enemy side of the map. You're starting to enter the jungle. It's that point in the game. If your mid wave is on your side of the map, your side of the river, you can't just simply walk from one side of mid lane through the river to the other, because you're going to be walking through creeps and you're going to have to spend time nuking them down, or you're going to have a creep wave following you, which is obviously really bad because it's just giving endless vision information to the enemies that, there's a hero mid. Whereas if they're pushed, you can move through the river freely out of vision. You're going to get from one side of the map to the other without giving any information away. The enemies are going to be none the wiser as to where you are. Same goes for the side lanes. You can access different points of the map by walking across a lane because your creeps are ahead of you. Do you understand what I mean by that? Am I making? Yeah,
that's what makes smoke good.
Yeah, smoke is obviously a way around it. That's why there's only 3 of them, sort of thing, because it's so valuable. Yeah. But it kind of comes into what Adam was saying about the vision. Having creeps pushed just frees up so much movement for you without being detected. So in order to move into areas like the enemy jungle and the enemy triangle, or wherever you may want to go, having creeps pushed first makes those routes so much easier. You don't necessarily need to smoke. You can just walk through your lane and then access them. And it just makes the game a lot harder for the enemy team to play. So yeah, make sure you're pushing creeps first, and you continue to push creeps once you are on the enemy side of the map. Don't just be satisfied. Keep cutting those waves.
I do think, so now I'm going more just general to being a better player or climbing MMR. I honestly think that if you played every game with the mantra of, say you're like relatively new and you played every game with the mantra of, I'm always gonna, if I hit a creep wave, I'm just gonna smash it down as fast as I can without using my ultimate. So that would therefore be like, use my spells to kill this creep wave as fast as possible. And then told yourself, try and actively farm in enemy camps more so than my own camps. So rather than when I'm walking to my own triangle, actually, can I maybe farm those 2 camps opposite the river? Probably can do because you've pushed the creep waves. Playing with those 2 mantras, I honestly think you will fly up. I'm yet to see someone who goes, oh my god, I never have mana. I use too many spells that I don't have mana. I've heard you say it once in that OD, because of OD, the hero, you can easily lose all your mana. But aside from OD, you never hear someone go like, oh my god, I just use too much mana on creeps. And no one's ever made that statement. So if you play with that kind of...
I make that statement all the time.
You use too much mana on Lena?
Yeah, all the time.
Maybe,
no, but I still agree with your point in general. But
maybe just outside of the position 2, because the position 2, like a Lena or less, you could easily like burn too much mana farming around. But say a 1, 3, 4, 5, those guys, those heroes are likely always going to have sufficient mana. And I think most players would always have excess mana and not use enough mana in a game of DotA.
And also, it's part of the point you're making is becoming a better player. Step 2 would just be like, get clarities. That's why the pros use so many clarities. It's like, yeah, you're using mana. Yeah, you now need to spend gold on regen, but you've just nuked creeps quicker, so you're farming faster. Even as a support, you're getting more done. You're buying regen to sustain this fast pace of play, this nuking creep waves. Congrats, you've just become a better player. Do you know what I mean? You've just gained 1,000 MMR for quick playing and nuking waves and ferrying regen, rather than just right-clicking because you don't have much mana left and you're trying to save up for your tranks or whatever.
But just those 2 basic points, I think. You don't need to think what follows that. I think you just need to concentrate on those. If you concentrate on those 2 points, the fruit will be sown, like the benefits will just naturally happen because the game state will be in your favor and you'll find these opportunities and take opportunities that arise, etc. You don't actually need to think about what happens once you've done those things. Just focus on the absolute rudimentary.
And this ties a little bit into another point we haven't quite touched on yet, which is if you're playing the enemy side of the map, it makes objectives and objective taking massively in your favor. If you lose a team fight in the enemy jungle around the enemy shrine, say, that is infinitely more acceptable than losing a team fight at your own shrine with creeps around your own shrine area, because you can't push an objective unless you've got creeps pushing into the tower or pushing into the high ground or whatever. The game is 10 times less punishing when fights and when skirmishes and when stuff is happening on the enemy side of the map. I think it's something that's become more and more apparent as Dota's gone on, just from what pros and analysts and casters say. Deaths don't matter. It's deaths that lead into objectives that really matter. And obviously, that's not an absolute, but in general, it's so much more acceptable to die or make a mistake or do anything when creeps are on the enemy side of the map and your enemy can't take any objectives. They can't capitalize on your mistake or your death. Whereas conversely, if you happen to win that team fight and the creeps are pushed in and you're on the enemy side of the map, guess what? You've just got a tier 2 of your choice, or guess what? You've just got high ground. And high ground's ever hard to push into at the moment. Give yourself the best opportunity to do so by having creeps constantly pushing in and for looking for fights on the enemy side of the map where you can quickly turn that kill into an objective. This game's about objectives. And there's no use winning a fight if you get nothing out of it, no objective out of it. You're going to have to win another one. So that's just another point about playing on the enemy side of the map. Anything we want to add, or do we want to talk about high ground? Is that pretty much all we want to say about this? Oh, Marco, actually, I don't know, you've written in capitals, play in the enemy woods even when behind. I don't know if you want to elaborate. Yeah,
so I think that too often people have the mentality of we're behind or maybe even equal in terms of gold experience and think that it's okay or sufficient to just passively play your own side of the map and, we'll just farm our side of the map. We don't need to worry about trying to win the game of Dota. We'll just somehow win it by passively farming our own creep. And say you're behind, I really think you have to, if you're going to not be behind, so often you might have some big ass team fight where, like we spoke about in previous episodes, you might be at a deficit, but make it a 5v5, you're actually stronger. But say it's just a balanced game, similar kind of compositions, and you are behind. In that kind of game, you're not coming back from the goal deficit staying the same because if you're both like similar kind of teams. So how do you claw back that deficit? Well, let's maybe try and think about getting some pickoffs and getting some kills. Comes back to the point, this is easier to do if you're better positioned. This is easier to do if you're playing in the enemy woods. You're waiting in the trees for them to just kind of, not casually, but just be pushing out creep waves. But if you're already there, you can make that gank happen. Again, there are lots of points about the shoving creep waves that are important. And when you're losing a game, there are these extra benefits of shoving creep waves. But mainly just for that factor of finding a kill, making a play happen.
Also,
farming in the woods of the enemy is so useful.
Even when behind and the enemy becomes a cat and mouse. So you're behind, and especially the higher up in their Mars you go, the enemy, because they're ahead, are going to want to play on your side of the map. Sometimes it's the safest place to farm is the enemy side of the map, even when behind. I mean, how many times do we see, especially with heroes like Anti-Mage, obviously, because of their innate mobility and escape, they just farm the enemy side of the map even when they're behind, when they're chasing the game, because enemy heroes are likely to be in their own jungle. So just be smart about areas to farm on the map. Again, cutting creep waves. If you're on the enemy side of the map and say the enemies are shaping up to attack your tier 2, say in your safe lane tier 2, if you're on the other side of the map cutting waves, cutting the mid wave, cutting the other side lane, it just slows the enemy down more and more. And you can't do that if you're sitting under your safe lane tier 3, hoping to sort of watching them take your tier 2 and going, man, I wish we were strong enough to fight them. Do you know what I mean? It's like, use every inch of the map that you can at all times.
I think there's also a time, not saving, but time creating aspect of, say, playing in the enemy woods and trying to make some skirmishes or ganks happen. Because if you just sit behind on your side of the map, so don't cross the river, if you're behind, the enemy team will be able to farm faster, will be able to farm with more freedom, and because they're less vulnerable, and those two factors pretty much will allow them to snowball their farm, and they'll just eventually hit a point when they can go, okay, I will get this objective, and it's just easy peasy. So if you want to kind of stop that snowball effect happening, you have to break out of the map, and you have to break out of your own side of the map. So shoving the creep waves and things like Adam has said in the past, you could be a Crystal Maiden in the trees, get a freezing field off just to get a creep wave, and you're buying time and you're stopping your team get choked to death. That's a great thing to do. But then in terms of the playing in the enemy woods aspect, that will stop the enemy team just being a 5 at your tier 3. It will stop the enemy team farming across the map because they've got to react to you. If you can make a gank happen, that's amazing. That's comeback. That's you clawing it back. You've got to make these kind of plays if you want to come back from being down. And so that means getting out of your woods, getting over the river, and making something happen.
I think especially, just finally on this point, if you're farming the enemy woods, that means that they can't kill you and get an objective at the same time, because they might kill you and then they've got to go all the way back to the other side of the map to try and kill one of your tier 2s. And it's just so much less punishing. If you're having your map pressured, even if the creeps aren't where you want it to be, worst case scenario, the lanes are pushed in as well. If you're farming the enemy side of the map, it's like you said, it creates time. If the enemies want to kill you, they've got to walk all the way back onto their side of the map, their own jungle, try and find you. Ideally, you get away. You're wasting even more time. But even if you don't, even if you die, how much better is that than farming your own jungle and getting ganked? And then it's like, wow, this took us 5 seconds to walk here because we're already pushing your mid tier 2 or already on your side of the map. And it just compounds how far behind you are, like you said. So, if there was the enemy safe lane, the enemy pos 1 farming a creep wave that was kind of neutrally along one of the lanes, like not necessarily in either side of the map,
and it's this mid-game scenario, so all the tier 1s are dead. So just think about how vulnerable this hero is. There's no towers nearby, so TP rotations are going to be slow. The likelihood that he's got people sat behind him, given that they're ahead, is very low because the rest of their team is ahead. They're like getting the wards down, doing their own farm. They're not scared. They don't need to babysit. Everything here screams license to make a play happen on that guy, and that requires you and your team kind of preemptively moving and positioning yourself off your map, across the river, into the enemy woods, make a kill happen. And if you can make a kill happen, get out and avoid these TP rotations that happen from the enemy team, the amount of time you save is actually just a joke in terms of delaying the game and preventing those like the foregone resources of the enemy team's farm, etc. The rotations all the way bottom allow you or one or two heroes licensed to push even further out the map. You can then collect more camps from the enemies, woods across the map, and then from your own. You get so much just from one play can ripple into so much benefit.
Yeah. Moving on to sort of high ground on the map. Obviously, when we say high ground in Dota, people just automatically think of tier 3s and the base and all of that. But actually, the high ground around the shrine areas, basically, there are 4 high ground areas, I suppose. Both teams' jungles and both teams' triangles, as it were. Often, I suppose the river as well. Nah, whatever. River's like low ground. Anyway, high ground is really important. It gives a lot of advantages. Warding, mischance, all the rest of it. But it's often forgotten. Adam, how do you think the sort of dynamics of high grounds are, and what are some of the things you can use as a player in a game playing a pub? How can you use the high ground on the map to your benefit, do you think?
Well, you want to have vision. It seems like all of
Can't
my
see up the high ground.
all of my games, because no one knows how to use smoke, so it always is like, let's smoke. Let's run into an area of the map where we don't have vision. Let's run up the hill.
Yeah.
Smoke pops as you're running up the hill, and we all die.
Mm.
Yeah. So vision's big. I'd say with the super high ground, what do you call those? Ward cliffs. You know what I'm talking about?
The ward spots. Yeah.
The high ground.
The eye ground.
Yeah, the eye ground. They don't necessarily provide the best vision. They're kind of a bit of a trap.
Bit obvious, yeah.
Yeah, but like the one, like throwing them on stairs, wards on stairs are pretty solid for the most part. Around the shrines, try and see as most of the walking pathways, I would think.
Yeah, definitely.
That's how you see. Yeah, you see entrances and exits. That's what gets used the most. So that's high traffic ward area where you'd be able to see rotations. Not a lot of people running past those eye grounds. Most of them are pretty deep, and only catch like one neutral camp or something.
Yeah, you'd only really get value from those if you were ahead and choking the map and looking to pick someone off who was just leaving the base.
Yeah, if you're like choking a team, it's pretty good to use theirs. But defensively, they're not great.
Yeah. Going back to that Maiden episode and talking about cast range talent and then how that affects wards, if you're a support player, 5 or 4, and you're able to put a ward on the high ground, say before your team is going to enter there or before a skirmish is going to happen around that area, and get therefore information about what the enemy team is doing with regards to their position on that high ground, that can be game changing. I feel like it happens all the time in these high level games, pro games, where a team makes kind of somewhat unconventional play where they go up aggressively into a high ground area, which on paper is like, whoa, that's bad. You don't want to run up with no vision. But if you can have someone that, say, plants a sneaky ward, like if you think of the Ancients, it's very common to put a ward where the Ancients are, and then that gives you vision on the top of the ramp. Mm-hmm. Wards like that, which gives that high ground vision, kind of like turn fights so much.
Yes, you'll see support smoke, like you say, and just seemingly throw out a sentry right in front of where 4 of their heroes are about to walk, and you're thinking, well, you're about to get vision of there, but it's like, no, we're about to potentially make a dangerous move up a high ground.
Yeah,
we absolutely have to see it as we're going. Even that 1 second of difference before we actually physically walk up, that's huge. It could make all the difference. Controlling these high ground areas is kind of like what Adam was saying. People underestimate how dangerous it can be to walk up a high ground purely based on the vision aspect. Obviously, you don't see up it until you're already up there. So you've got no vision in front of you. And so it can be an incredibly rewarding position to control, especially when you're ahead in the game. Controlling these choke points, controlling these entrances to the jungle is everything. I think, particularly when I play a hero like TA, if I just trap the routes up, particularly if I'm on Radiant and we're playing in the dire jungle, the 2 entrances into their jungle, they effectively have 2, and if you just slap a trap on both of them, any hero that tries to walk up there, any support that is desperate to get some vision down in their own jungle, retake their own jungle, it's just a free kill. And I know when we play party, we try and emulate what pros do of basically just camping high ground areas. How many times have you seen EG camp the high ground of the triangle, say, wait for any hero or any group of heroes to try and get back out on the map? A lot of teams are desperate to do so when they're behind, like, oh, we need vision of our own jungle, secure our own jungle. Or if they walk up that high ground, they're dead because you've controlled it with vision and you've got heroes there ready to pounce. The high ground areas are the best place to just get a snap kill when the enemy think they can come out onto the map and you're ready to just punish them.
I got 2 more points. So the point about getting a snap kill because you're waiting for the enemy to come try and get that defensive ward out or something, but you're just stood there on the ramp. That also relates to the point of playing deep and playing in the enemy woods, and you don't have to TP to your tier 2 to get the creep wave, or you don't have to go farm some neutrals that are a bit safer, a bit deeper in your own jungle. You can literally sit that really aggressive woods area where there are ramps where you go, there's a decent chance an enemy support's going to waddle up here just for to go play some wards eventually. Or someone might waddle up here thinking they can safely farm. We're just going to punish it and then get out. So that comes back to the playing aggressively on the map point. Then also this high ground point is really important for the tier 2 towers. So in the side lanes, mid less so. But if you think about an enemy safe or off tier 2, to me it's really, really important that if you're going to make a siege like that happen, or if you're going to try and capture that objective, that firstly you have got all that high ground vision. Because like we've said with, in particular, the so say if you're trying to defend your safe lane tier 2, it's hard because you can just get wrapped around really easily. And so that comes to the point of, well, the enemy team that's taken your safe lane tier 2 has got that map control first and then gets the tower second. Because if they didn't, they would be getting wrapped on. So it's really important, I think, to when you're approaching tier 2 towers to think about the high ground area near them and to make sure that that's covered. So say, just to put it really crystal clear, say you are Dire and you are attacking the Radiant tier 2. If you don't have vision and control of the Radiant Shrine, you deserve to get wiped because that is just so blooming rookie, it's insane. If you're a Dire and you're killing the enemy Radiant tier 2, make sure you've got sight or a hero stood where you can see Shrine TPs happen. Make sure you've also got someone that can see Radiant heroes going up that first mini ramp, such that the only way Radiant can respond is walking to the tier 2 from the tier 3 or TPing in and
putting themselves in a position to be wrapped.
Putting themselves in a dangerous position. And you have all the information because you've got all that high ground positioning. You can then therefore make whatever move is best.
Yeah,
and I think you deserve to get wiped if you don't have vision of that shrine. If you're pushing the tier 2 Radiant,
and I think another prime example that I think of that's almost the easiest to do as the attacking team, if you're Radiant attacking the Dire off lane tier 2.
Yeah.
You know, they're in the dire triangle, there are those 2 eye ground spots that are basically just one just behind the tier 1 and one just behind the tier 2.
Yeah.
Those, if you're attacking that dire tier 2, you need to have a hero or you need to have an observer ward on that high ground area. You need to be able to control it. You can't have heroes, say, TPing to the tier 3 defensively and then just walking up that first ramp without being killed. Like, they need to be killed. And likewise, if you have heroes up there, if you have, let's face it, there's a Pudge in every game. If you have a Pudge, say, sitting on that high ground or whatever, ready to hook any hero that's trying to walk down to the lane to defend the tier 2, it basically just becomes completely untenable for Dire to try and defend that tower. And that is the key to having a successful siege, is like these high ground lanes.
And also, when we talk about what makes a player a better player, the making or taking advantage of enemy players slipping up, or they overstep the line and you punish them, that makes a player a better player. It's the preliminary step is things like this, where you've got that vision, you've got that positioning, and then a worse player steps forward too much and doesn't respect the fact that the enemy have got a good setup, they're out of position, you make a kill happen.
Yeah,
that can't happen without that prerequisite positioning and thinking ahead of, right, where do I need to be stood for this siege, or where would I want to be on the map, or would I want my vision on the map to be, etc. We've got to do all this first before we can reap the benefit.
And thinking about what mistake the enemy is about to make, because that is kind of what we've been. This kind of the advantage of controlling the high ground areas altogether is because enemies are all MMRs are so likely to walk up high grounds because they don't respect them. Think about how fruitful it is doing like half backs, like fake backs. You're sieging a tier 3, but you can't really make it. Marco, you say all the time, retreat together, retreat as 5, because there's, first of all, if you retreat as 5 back into the enemy jungle, they're going to likely follow you thinking they're safe, thinking, oh, they're not sieging us anymore, they're not applying pressure to us anymore, let's expand out onto the map. Bang, you've just died because you've just walked up a high ground back into your own jungle because you think you're safe. And this kind of falls into another general discussion of don't TP one hero back to push out a wave, on your own side of the jungle, unless they can, say, BOT back in or Remnant back in or be recalled or whatever it is, because as soon as the enemy see a hero is completely disengaged, they are no longer threatened by a half retreat. They're no longer feel scared to walk into their own jungle because they know they're only going to be against 4 heroes and they know that they're not going to be set up there as 5. So just thinking about these things is super important. You straight up win games from, like you were saying, enemies making mistakes and nonchalantly walking up a high ground because they think they can, because they think you've retreated. But just be ready, be cutthroat.
Yeah, you've got to do what you can, everything you can, to not put yourself in a position that is exploitable and punishable. Yeah. And you've also got to do everything you can to exploit and punish the enemy team, both happening at once. All thinking about carries, something I try and do more of is recent times when I've been playing carries in ranked, I've thought to myself of playing more defensively. So thinking about how can I not be punished as much is something I've been at one point worked on. And don't say you're a void and you've got your Q, or when there's one creep left in the wave, and thinking to yourself, do I have the time and do I have the right to get that creep without being in a vulnerable position? And that's a case where often people can overstep the mark, and so many people die by going for that one extra creep, so they didn't get back fast enough. And that's a combination of you overstepping the mark and the enemy team taking advantage of you overstepping the mark.
It's definitely a truism of pub Dota. It's much better to
err on the side of safety, not make mistakes.
Not make mistakes. Try and cut down on your mistakes rather than trying to make the incredible play. It's just the dynamics of it being a team game of anonymous people. If you're trying to make the miracle play happen, it's way harder to make that happen than play defensively, wait for the enemy to be proactive and make a mistake and pounce on it. But then it's always going to be easier for you, I think. Not to suggest, but the thing is, that doesn't mean, play defensively, play safe, play on your side of the map, like, take the easy farm. It means putting yourself in a position, which is almost an aggressive thing, to be able to pounce on the enemies making a mistake. So it's kind of a difficult thing to.
It's a really hard balance because when you say you do want to play without making yourself make mistakes, I would then say the worry is that you start playing too conservatively. You start like retreating into your shell a bit too much, more than you need to, etc. So I think it may be more the individual micro instances, or this is the way I see it, where I've been trying to play a bit more reserved. So even killing a creep wave, and it seems like there's no issue, but thinking, well, there is a bit of a chance that I could be getting moved on. So are those 2 creep worth it? Let's just queue out or jump out, use my spells to retreat. But then on the macro side, I think it is, you do want to play with a bit of aggression. Like you say, you want to punish the enemy team's mistakes. So you kind of have to like put your neck on the line a bit. So it is a tough balance.
What do you reckon, Adam? No mistakes or proactive making plays? What's the way to go for an aspiring young kid who wants to beef up his MMR on the streets?
Proactive making plays.
Yeah?
You got to play to win. You can't play to not lose.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's definitely true. I think it's difficult, like we said. It's definitely a balance. And I've definitely gone through periods of being like, especially on carry, I can't die. My chief objective in this game is don't die. But at the same time, it's like there's a pretty easy way not to die, and that's to stay in your fountain all game. That's obviously a mistake. So it's like the way you approach it, and so it's a hard thing to talk about, and it's definitely a balance. So yeah. But when it comes to playing on the map, I think that's a macro thing, and those are the areas that increasingly become ever more important as DotA gets more solved, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
People realize, I think teams realize how important these macro things are.
It's interesting. You think about the development of DotA as a game and a solved game. If you rewind the years, go back 10 years, the game was basically 3 mini games of the lanes just 2v2, 1v1, 2v2, and no one probably took any notice of the other 2 lanes that were happening. It was just a mini game. And then if you fast forward over the years, like all that was micro perfections, etc. Now at the highest level, it's so much more and nearly all about that macro strategy, macro movement. I mean, the players are using spells nearly perfectly. Obviously not 100% because that's not possible, but like 99% perfection, etc. It's way more these macro ideas that are important, or they're like the most important at the pro level, but then are increasingly important in just general pub games as opposed to like a 2v2 mini game.
Yeah, and then you see things like out of that, you see things like movement speed being valued ever more, and certain talents being chosen over the other because it allows these macro movements to be made then a bit more important than say getting a bit of damage, or how BOTs have become so much more broken because of the what they allow you to do macro wise and stuff.
Yeah,
it's just, and heroes like Chen being just instantly broken because of recall or IO of relocate. It's like these pro teams who abuse the fact that they can have heroes applying pressure and being in different areas of the map at the same time. So,
yeah, they can abuse that so well.
Yeah, because it allows them to say de-push their own side of the map while still sitting on the enemy high ground, waiting for someone to walk up it. Whereas in a pub game, it's like you do that, your carry's like, screw this, I'm not waiting, I'm TPing away. Suddenly you're forced sitting pubs.
Yeah,
that's like a classic situation to happen. In the sort of episode plan, we were going to talk about securing Roche, but I feel like that's too big of a topic to dive into now. Perhaps we'll do that on another episode, maybe next episode, who knows. So with that in mind, is there anything else we want to touch on particularly here about using the map in general?
I would jump into my mini-map
Yeah, it's like we didn't even talk about the mini-map cap.
Yeah. So to me, I think it's a nice natural place to talk about the minimap at the end. So all these ideas to me just get funneled into watching the minimap for 60% of the game. I honestly just stare at the minimap so much because that dictates then where you are playing or where you should be playing or where the opportunities are going to arise, because the minimap tells you where your team is, and then it's only the minimap that you're going to learn information about where the enemy team is, because you're not going to look around the whole main map, like, oh, there's that Rubik all the way over here. Like, you can't do that. You have to look at the minimap to see all the information at once, and then you use that to go, well, which area do we play in, or which area can we play in, or they're revealing a movement up that direction, or we see someone TP to that lane, so let's put an arrow into the opposite lane and invade this area, knowing they can't TP rotate this key hero, things like this. Or you might have in mind, we need to take this objective, so circle this high ground shrine, let's make sure we've got control of this before we try and make a move on that objective. Things like this. The minimap, honestly, maybe like a full episode needs to be done on the minimap. I don't know if that's possible or if that's necessary. I just honestly think it's so important.
Definitely important. One thing I'd add, though, is you say spend 60% of your time looking at the minimap. I think another step up to become really good that I'm hearing more of, just from like Immortal, player tips and stuff when they make YouTube videos or whatever, is if you see something happening on the minimap, so your first port of call, obviously you're watching the minimap a lot, you see a little skirmish, you see a little fight or something, don't just stare at the little icons on the minimap. If you're just like AFK farming creeps, or if you don't necessarily need to have your camera, the main camera, hovered around your hero, make sure you're clicking on the enemies, make sure you're seeing the little skirmishes, because it gives you a really good idea of the like general game state. How is you're playing carry, you're I don't know, playing a carry Slark, and your game's okay, it's not great. Well, you should be monitoring the other lane as best you can to have a general idea of, well, how strong's their void, or how strong is their carry, how's their lane going, how's mid going, and obviously you can ask and you'll get a response, but it might not be, who knows what that response will be, how truthful or whatever. Just like when you see something happening on the minimap, move your camera over there, like get into the habit of monitoring the game other than just your hero, clicking on enemies, see what items they have, and all of this stuff as well. But like you say, it derives from monitoring the minimap. It stems out of that initial action. So yeah, no, I definitely agree. Use the extra large minimap as well if you haven't got that ticked in the. Well, do you guys have that one ticked? Extra large minimap in the options?
Nope.
No.
What does that mean? The map itself, or are you talking about the icons for the heroes?
No, the map itself. It's got a small version and a big version.
I do the small version, I think.
Okay. I'm all about that big version. You can also show minimap on the right. I've never tried.
I was going to mention that. That
Big
is.
note.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got use extra large minimap, use alt to show hero icons, and invert alt toggle. So I think I see heroes on the map.
Yeah, rather than
the arrows, but rather than color arrows. This is a debate that we've had many times, I think. I think it's Brother Joe, isn't it, that's all about the colours.
Well, yeah, he's just stuck in the past, being really stubborn. It's definitely. And I think Adam said it before, like, but I know instantly what colour this is to what hero, and it's like, you just add in one extra unnecessary step with the icons, you know exactly who is who. So I remember changing a handful of years ago. Felt good.
Maybe I'll do that.
Maybe. You don't know which way they're facing, though. Information.
Oh, the facing.
That's true. You do know which way they're facing with the arrows.
I don't think that's really
not big enough of a reason.
Yeah, I don't think that's big enough.
But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. I don't know what we'll be talking about next week. Hopefully, maybe a Viper episode, because this hero is honestly a free win. Someone said in the Discord, it was Cass. Of course it was Cass. Someone said something in the Discord, so a good chance it was Cass, and it was. Big time player in the Discord now. He said, I need basically a new mid hero, because 3 of my heroes are countered by Monkey King. I think it was like Kunkka, Meepo, and Timber. He wasn't sure what other hero. Viper, my friend, Viper. This hero is so so good. It's unbelievable. So I feel like maybe if I get Divine with some Viper spam that's going on at the moment, I'll have to give Viper some airtime on the pod. But who knows what's coming next week? Hopefully a patch episode, but we'll have to see. But that was EP 59, and good luck with your newfound map skills. And I'll see you on the streets of Dota 2.
GG.
See you on the map.
See you in the rainforest.
Save the rainforest.